What is going on, people? This is the JT Sports Show, episode 37. It has been a while, and I mean a while, since the last time we talked to you. I think the last time we talked was a couple of days. It was right around that Knicks game when the Wolves went on the road and beat the Knicks with a very shorthanded roster. Well, now the season is over, and so we have other things to discuss. And for that, Jackson Borst is here. We're going to talk about the Timberwolves. We're going to go through a few things back and forth. We're going to do a little snake draft on what we think Tim Connelly must do this offseason. Then we're going to talk about the Twins after they just had their first season series win against the New York Yankees since 2001, before I was born. And finally, we'll hit on a little of what is going to happen tomorrow night with the Minnesota Vikings in the NFL draft. But Borsty, how are you feeling the day after the Timberwolves season has come to a close?
I'm kind of happy it's over. That took a lot out of me. It wasn't a fun season. Obviously, it had some great moments, but I got to say, I'm kind of happy it's done.
Yeah, I mean, as of last night, I was not happy at all because I enjoy the day of a Wolves game, thinking, what am I going to do tonight? Oh, I'm going to watch the Wolves. Now it's like, I don't know what I'm going to do besides the Twins, but I don't know. The Twins doesn't hit to me like the Wolves hits to me because the Twins play every freaking day. So that's just another thing going on. But that being said, this offseason is going to be crazy. It might not be crazy because they might not do anything, but they could do a lot. And with that, we both came up with a few ideas for what we think Tim Connelly should do. And I'm going to let you go first. This is like picking Trevor Lawrence number 1 overall or Zion Williamson number 1 overall. Yeah, there's a very obvious number 1, and I'm going to let you talk about it first.
So I get the first pick is what you're saying?
Yes.
We're doing a snake draft.
We are.
Okay.
Actually, no, we're not going to do a snake draft. You go, and then I go, then you go, I go. Not you. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so there's only 2 people, so that's the only way.
No, it would go you, and then me, and then me again, and then you. But no, we're just going to go back and forth. We'll just go back and forth.
Okay. First one. Trade number 32. Cat.
Yep.
Get him out. His playoff performance speaks for itself. He's going to be making $60 million, and he's not a number 1. He is a number 3 on a championship team. I don't really know what else there is to say at this point. Do I appreciate his years and his contributions? Yes, but it's time for him to go. It is time. We need a fresh start. We need to do everything in our power to make this organization all about Anthony Edwards, and whatever fits him, that's what you need to put into this roster. That's what you need to put around him. And I just think you got to move on. His playoff performance was horrible again.
Yep.
We've talked about it ad nauseum, but new era. It's time. The 2 bigs doesn't work, despite Chris Finch last night with those horrible comments saying that he's very optimistic. No, I'm done. I've been done.
Can you see this?
Yes.
So this is the Timberwolves payroll.
But yeah, trade Cat. That's my number 1 pick.
Yep. And with the Karl Anthony Towns bit, you can see here. Can you see my cursor?
I can.
So 2020, this year, he made $33.8 million. Next year, 36.
Which is why we need to trade him now.
Correct. Which isn't too bad. The year following is when his Supermax contract kicks in. That is when his value goes down. And therefore, you do not want to wait until then. You want to trade him this summer. June 29th is when you can trade Karl Anthony Towns. That is right here. $36 million. He will still have value. Teams will want Karl Anthony Towns because of the value he has. That being said, will Tim Connelly pull the trigger? I do not know. I didn't even realize this grid is on here right now, but yeah, I mean that's an obvious first pick. And Cat is we just watched a playoff series where he was completely taken out of the series with a guy that is much shorter than him guarding him. It is quite embarrassing that he doesn't know how to post up a player like Aaron Gordon. Hell, last night Bruce Brown, or as it was on him 2 different times, and he didn't take advantage either time. One time he fell down on the post up, he slipped. The other time the ball was stripped from him. I mean, like if you're gonna play this too big lineup, you have to be able to punish people because like yeah, you could just space him in the corner, but is that I'd rather have picks and
Yes.
a couple of players than have one guy that is not a good defender, is making that much money and can't punish people for his size, and just like in general, this team just doesn't fit around Anthony Edwards with the too big lineup because the transition, like Ant is prime for a team like last year's team where yeah, Cat was on the team, but he was the lone center. And so like Cat is he fast? No, but for a center, he can get up and down. Like it's just you can't have Rudy and Cat on the floor. And that's why I'm fine having Rudy Gobert, but
yeah,
to have Carl too, I don't know.
The two bigs
all right.
doesn't work, and they're making too much money combined. $77 million next year and $94 the next. That's awful. And you're not going to win that way.
I think in an upcoming episode, because I do want to start doing more of these now that the off season's here and the Twins and the Vikings draft and this whole off season is just going to be interesting for the Timberwolves. But I mean, June 29th is when it'll really heat up because that's when you can actually do stuff. But I want to talk about a few potential Cat trades, and we can both create a few that could possibly make sense. But number 2, I will. This pick is, I think you would probably do this as well as your number 2. Re-sign Naz Reid.
Yep, of course.
It's going to be tough. I really do think so. His name was flowing through the NBA.
Oh yeah. He was all the buzz
before he got hurt.
Yeah.
Yes. Jaden McDaniels was too. Him and Naz, those two guys really made a name for themselves.
Big time.
But Naz Reid, right now, he is making, what is he making right now?
1.9
million.
Yeah.
I don't see him making less than
10.
Yeah, I was going to say 12. Like, there's going to be a bidding war for him.
Yeah.
It depends on what his priorities are. Is it money? Is it the familiarity with Minnesota? Like, are you willing to take $2 million less to come here? Because I think no matter what, he'll have a role here, and he sort of knows what his role is here, especially if Cat gets traded, then his role is even more.
Huge. He has a huge role. Like, he's our sixth man.
Imagine Cat gets traded. Rudy's here. Rudy's 31. Rudy is 31 years old. He's not going to play every game. Matter of fact, he will probably get hurt. And therefore, Naz Reid is your starting center.
And he could win Sixth Man of the Year.
He could. Yeah, that's possible. But I think he would almost start too many games because Rudy's just Rudy would probably miss too many games. But I think Naz Reid getting signed is the number one priority in terms of signing players this offseason. If you can't sign him, you can obviously sign a different player for around the same price at the mid-level. What is the amount of money you would not sign him at?
Like super max money or max money.
So you would pay $25 million for him?
No, I'm not really familiar with the NBA money aspect as much as like the NHL. But so Connor McDavid makes $13 million a year. He's the highest paid. For Naz in NHL standards, the highest I would go would be like 6 or 7 million, which is like a lot. Like that's a lot for a role player in the NHL. Like a lot. That's like the highest I'd go. So whatever the equivalent of that is in the NBA, that's what I'd go to.
A high paid role player in the NBA is 18.
Well, then that's the highest I'd go.
Yeah. I would say so. Like Mike Conley, would you call him a role player?
Well,
He's 22. He's making 24 million next year.
okay, but when he signed that, he was like,
He was a good player.
yeah.
Yeah. I think I would be surprised if Nasri goes for 18 million. That is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to probably go around the 12 to 14 million dollar range. I mean, he could start on some teams. And so, does he want to do that, or does he want to stick around here and possibly be, if you trade Cat, the starting center in a couple of years when Rudy Gobert is gone?
Yeah.
Whatever you want. All right, you're up.
The next one, it's another signing. It's re-sign Jaden to a reasonable contract.
Yeah. What do you consider to be reasonable?
Not 25. That's way too much.
That's tough. That's what he goes for.
That's just way too much for what he does.
What do you mean? I disagree on this one. Like, he is already a premier defender and a very much improved offensive player. And he's only 22 years old. You could do that. You could sign him for a non-max deal for 5 years. You're doing that. Like, because now you can sign these rookie contracts for 5 years. Not 4 anymore. It was 4. Now you can do 5. I'll take Jaden for 25, 27, 30, whatever it is.
30? No.
Well, I'm saying like in 2-3 years he would be making a little more than what he is next year.
I would play hardball because I don't think another team, like he's a restricted free agent, so like we have his rights. I would say fine, go get this high number from another team and I'll match it because I don't want to lose you, but I don't think you can do it. I don't think another team is going to pay you that kind of money.
I just don't think it matters that much, to be honest. What's the difference? And when you're signing a player like that, you're basically just signing him to the amount that he's happy with. You just don't want him to not be happy. That's the goal. So, like, what's the difference in $5 million? Nothing.
Well, it could be a little.
No, not in that case.
All right. Well, all right. I guess I don't really care that much, but just re-sign him to a good contract. I don't even care about the term. Just he's a great player. I want him here for a long time. Just get a good contract. Just lock him up.
I'll go next. Shore up the point guard position.
Oh, that was my next one.
And this doesn't necessarily mean get rid of Mike Conley, but it means
backup.
Not only do you need to get a backup, you need to plan for the future. Mike Conley is probably not here after next year unless he is a bench backup point guard. Like, I don't see Mike Conley being the starting point guard in 2 years. So therefore, perfect world, in my opinion, in the Cat trade, you get a point guard back. Perfect world, that's Emmanuel Quickley.
Yeah.
But that's a perfect world, and so I can't necessarily expect that.
I would do that in a heartbeat.
I have another thing regarding the point guard list on my list here, but I'm going to leave it at that. I just think you have to shore up the point guard role. You have to get a better backup point guard. And whether Mike Conley is old, and he's not, again, we can't expect him to play. He was playing a ton of minutes down the stretch of the season. He cannot, I would say you want him averaging no more than 27, 28 minutes a game next year.
Mm-hmm.
If he's averaging 30 or more, he's just going to get hurt, man. So
I would love to keep Conley and have him gradually just kind of ride off in the sunset. Like
100%. I agree.
He can still hit shots. He can still, come in off the bench and, kind of guide a unit and, get things going. But yeah, I totally agree with the point guard thing. I had that. But I went the backup point guard route. We got to figure that out. J-Mac he's not the answer. He was abysmal the last few months. But hey, maybe it was just an unlucky run. He was hurt, and hopefully he'll be back next year, like a lot better, get out of his funk. But we'll see.
Dane Moore made a good point on his podcast. regarding J-Mac and why we feel like he's struggling more, and he is struggling more. But I think when we had D'Angelo Russell, they were so different. And so when J-Mac came in, it was such a different pace, and a lot of the guys on the team play better with that pace.
They
Nas
did.
Reed, he and
Yep.
J-Mac always had a good combo. Ant Edwards,
Yep.
when he was on the floor with J-Mac, always played well.
For sure.
Whereas now Mike Conley is more similar to J-Mac than D'Lo was. So it just feels like you're getting the same from J-Mac, but just much worse. Whereas with D'Lo, it was a totally different thing, and it just changed the flow of the game in a good way.
Yeah.
So I said one of my things was don't bring back J-Mac. I don't want him back. He just doesn't. He doesn't bring much. Like
he can't shoot.
He's can't shoot, and he's too small. The only thing he really brings is like some tenacity
on the defensive end
and pushes the pace, which he gets the ball moving, which is good. But I don't know.
And especially when it's like you could just have like Ant or Slow-Mo run the point guard
now
with the bench out there.
To defend him, I think another reason he had more success last year, you need shooting around him.
Yep.
When there's no shooting around him, he's passing to guys that can't shoot. And then they won't shoot, and then they pass back to him. And he's like, I ain't shooting.
Yeah.
So then it's just bad. Whereas last year he had Beasley to pass to, and he had Prince to pass to out the bench, and he had Nas to pass to out the bench. So stuff like that. All right. To sort of go along with that, my fourth point was don't bring back J-Mac / Jalen Noel.
Oh,
I think this is really clear because Jalen Noel is I believe, unrestricted free agent. So there's probably a 99% chance he isn't back next year. It just doesn't make sense to come back. But this season has been an atrocious season for him. It couldn't have gone worse, to be honest. Early in the preseason, Chris Finch was talking about how this future is on Ant, Jaden, and Jalen. And everyone's like, what? Why are you adding Jalen Noel in the mix? Well,
when did he say that?
He said that before the season this year.
Oh.
And the beginning of the season, Jalen Noel was freaking good.
The first 2 games he was, yeah.
No, I mean, I don't know. I'd enjoy looking back at his game logs.
Well, how many times this year did he literally shoot us out of the game?
Well, that was your whole thing. And Jalen Noel was your number one public enemy for a good portion of this season.
That
it was whenever Jalen Noel comes in.
Hey, I think the first half, first fourth of the year, well, really the first half was D'Lo, with second place probably being Noel. And then it transitioned into Rudy for a little bit. And then who else?
Cat.
Well, yeah, that's both of us, though. That's just a given. But Noel was up there for so much of the year.
Yeah, I guess I mean this is sort of just a home or a single. I'd say the Cat trade's a double in terms of difficulty. Which one of these is a home run? Probably the home run would be getting a good point guard in a Cat trade. I think this is a single. Jalen Noel ain't coming back. Your turn.
Well, my next one was improve the bench, but we kind of just touched on all of that. So I'm going to do, I don't know. It's kind of dumb, but I put down owners demand building around Ant.
So is that just a Cat trade or what?
I mean, I think so.
Yeah. Anthony Edwards is such a good player that he still, with this roster construction in this playoff series, was unbelievable. Whereas, he can be even better. Now, I think that the reason I'm more, and some people that don't watch the team or are saying, why would you not trade Rudy? Why would you trade Cat? Why would you not trade Rudy? Rudy's worse. Well, I learned late in the season when Cat and Ant are on the floor, Ant is so much better when he gets those Rudy screens and he can attack off of that. Sure, he doesn't pass to Rudy, and that is an issue going forward.
I'm sure that'll get better, though. I do think so. I think if they're together next year and it's the two of them and Cat's not in the picture, I think it'll get better.
It's not whether he can pass to him. It's whether he wants to. Rudy was wide open last night on a couple of plays where Ant was getting doubled.
He was just going to shoot everything.
No, Ant didn't even shoot. He was looking around. Rudy's right there. He just wouldn't pass to him. So that's a question. Like, is Ant ever going to be okay? Like, is this the Donovan Mitchell 2.0? Is he just never going to pass to him? Either way, Rudy brings defense that Cat doesn't. Rudy's not going to be making $60 million.
Yes.
And
he only has 2 more years or 3 more years left. Or after next year, like 1 left because of like a player option or something. So his contract isn't as bad.
Yeah, Rudy is next year 41, then 43, then 46, which let's see here.
It's still an awful contract, don't get me wrong, but it's just not as bad. Cat's here for another 5 years at just an abysmal number.
Yeah. And some people talk about how the paint gets bogged down or the paint is clogged with
it does when both of them are out there, but when it's just Rudy,
Rudy, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not at all. It's when they are both out there. I completely agree. And so if you can trade one of them, is transition defense that big of an issue? No. It's when there are 2 big guys out there.
Yeah.
When there's one center, most teams have a slow center.
And glass half full, I think Rudy's going to be better next year. I do. I think the noise will kind of settle down a little bit about him and how much he got traded for, if we trade Cat, of course, because it'll kind of even things out. But I think the noise will die down, and I think he'll probably be more well rested, and I think he'll come in with a much better attitude, not as much to prove in a sense, and I think he'll play more relaxed, and his defense will be a lot better next year.
I had no issues with his defense for the majority of this season, especially the second half of the year. The second half of the year, I thought his defense was really, really good, to be honest. And somebody wrote an article during the season that players that played with Rudy prior always said the first year was just super tough with him because he's such a weird player. And that after year 1, things always get better with Rudy Gobert. So that's another point to the Rudy Gobert side. The last thing that I wrote down, and this is, you'll agree with this. I know you will. It's kind of dumb, but or small. It's not that important. But re-sign Austin Rivers just as the last guy. Why not?
I'm surprised that you put that.
Well, I mean, I like Austin Rivers.
Yeah,
and
same.
He is a vet minimum. He is making
nothing.
And
to NBA standards.
No team is going to pay him any more than we would probably be able to pay him. He's making 1.8. Re-sign him to the same contract.
Yeah.
He's
a great guy for the locker room. Great guy for the team trips.
And if you get hurt, if a bunch of guys get hurt, he's not that bad.
No,
like he
hustles. You know what? He's a smart basketball player. He's a smart player. He knows his role, and I really enjoyed having Austin Rivers on the team this year. I really did.
Yeah, I agree. So that was my last one. You got any more?
Nice. Well, I mean, I put there's the Edwards extension, but that's
it's just a given.
Yeah.
So one thing that I just thought of, this is the last year. If things don't improve in terms of late game offense,
yes,
I'm done with Chris Finch.
Yep.
You have to figure that out.
You know what? I don't even know. Sorry to interrupt. But I don't know if it's just the late game offense. What about literally everything else? Keep going.
What about everything? Well, Chris Finch is this roster was just effed up.
Partly his fault. Keep going.
I would be surprised if they make a cat trade and the roster is somewhat normal next year, like it fits decently well together, and the offense is still below average like it was this year, can them. He
No, I
doesn't bring
actually don't
enough
think.
of the
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
intangibles in terms of, does he manage his timeouts great? Not really. Is he hard enough on guys at times during the game when they're playing a crappy team? Probably not. Is he great with late game execution? No. What I do like about Chris Finch and what's tough is the players love him. And you want continuity. And you know who loves him the most is Anthony Edwards.
Which is why I'd like to keep him.
Yeah, and we haven't had continuity around here for forever. So I want Chris Finch to improve as a coach, and I want him.
Just for the record to the audience, we both like Chris Finch.
We do. Yeah, and I just think it's a pretty simple fix. Like all he always says is when the offense gets sticky lately or at the end of games and gets stagnant, he just says, I have trust in the guys, and I just want them to be play in a flow offense and move the ball. At what point do you just start calling some more plays? Like, be a little more structured. Like, it's not illegal to do that. A lot of coaches do that. And you can still be a coach that likes the ball moving and flow offense and not a bunch of plays. But once you get late in the fourth quarter, held to the start of the fourth quarter, once you feel that there is a minute of bad offense and the other team makes a 5-0 run, call a timeout. And for the rest of the game, or at least when it's within 10 points, have some structure to your offense. That's all I'll say.
And if we execute this cat trade and, Nas is back and we get, like some good shooters in this cat trade, some good pieces on the bench, I do think the offense will be much, much better next year. Yeah. I do.
And we haven't named this one player one time, and we've talked for 27 minutes. Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Yeah, but the reason I didn't is because he's a restricted free agent, so it's just kind of...
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, in general, we haven't mentioned his name. I'm not saying we should have had it on what Tim Connelly should do, because if he doesn't do that, that's a disgrace. He will be back on this team. That's almost a guarantee after what he just did.
I like him.
Almost did. I can't imagine anybody doing a better job on Jamal Murray than he did. When Jamal Murray was guarded by Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he shot 36% from the field. When he faced anybody else, 53%. Nickeil was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was great. I really like him. He had a great year with us.
Give Tim Connelly some props for that trade. That was not a good trade?
I'm not going to give that guy props on anything.
So it wasn't a good trade?
I'm not giving him props on anything.
So it wasn't a good trade?
I don't know.
Was it a good trade? So you want D'Lo back?
No.
You want to give Mike Conley back? You want to give Nickeil back? Those 2 second-round picks? That was a hell of a trade. That was a great trade.
I will not be giving that guy props on anything.
Well, there's a difference between giving him props and calling him a good GM and saying that was a good move.
Okay, fine.
It was a good move. Say it.
Yeah, that was a good trade.
Thank you.
What? Is he a good GM?
Well, he's made almost all good moves besides
the one. Is he a good GM?
If he makes the cat trade, maybe that was the plan all along.
No.
Remember 2 weeks into the season, it looked bad, and I was like, there's no way Tim Connelly's this dumb. There has to be a backup plan. Maybe the backup plan all along. Like, yeah, we've had to wait a whole year, which has felt like 8 years. But it's only been 1 year. And maybe the cat, like, you couldn't trade Cat until this June 29th.
Yeah.
So maybe that was the plan all along. We do not know. And you cannot read into anything that Chris Finch or Tim Connelly says to media. It means nothing. He said he loves D'Angelo Russell, and he couldn't picture D'Angelo Russell not being on this team. D'Angelo Russell was traded.
Yeah.
You cannot believe anything that these guys say to the media. It is all smoke. All right.
I mean, I guess this is like a perfect transition. If we run it back next year, I don't even know what I'm going to do. But I think I will be done with this team forever if we run it back next year. That'll be the biggest disgrace this state has ever seen with our sports teams if this guy and this coach and these owners decide to run this thing back, I wouldn't be able to like believe what I'm seeing if it happens.
Thursday, tomorrow, is the exit interviews. I don't know how much we'll hear get from certain people. I'm sure we'll hear Chris Finch say that the too big lineup, he's very excited to work more with it.
Yeah, sure we will.
Don't read into it. Tim Connelly, I'm sure he'll say a lot of good things about all the guys. He's not going to rip any of them. Just can't expect that.
Well, but Cat missed 52 games. And then Nas and Jaden were out in the playoffs. Cat missed 52 games, and if we just got a little more time, we think it would have been.
What Chris Finch did say last night in his presser, that they got more than enough film on the too big lineup.
He did say that.
So I don't think they're using that as an excuse.
Well, he will tomorrow. That guy will use it as an excuse tomorrow morning, and we will see.
It was a crazy season, and took years off of my life. Actually, you know what? Last year, I don't know if it took years off my life.
The playoffs wasn't very stressful this year because it was just like, we don't care. Well, we care, but like it wasn't.
I firmly believe that if we won last night, that we win tomorrow night. We started to figure them out. The recipe was simple.
But they also started
They could not guard Anthony Edwards.
No, but they decided to just finally double team him and just go straight at him and just get the ball out of his hands. I mean, did you see what Malone said yesterday? He said, what did he say? He goes like, this kid is scary, like scary, bright future.
Yeah, everyone would say that.
Well, I just wondered, what would their GM do? What would the new Denver GM do? He'd probably be trading one of these guys.
I don't know. I mean, the playoffs went pretty good for the whole Anthony Edwards news cycle.
So did the whole season.
For the most part, I mean, Ant was pretty good all season, except for the first part of the season, and then the last part of the season before the playoffs.
Injured.
But yeah, I mean, Ant's a playoff player. It's really cool. Is there any other players in Minnesota that you can call a playoff player, a legitimate playoff player?
Yeah, I would have said Kirill, but this year he's having a tough go.
And how many times has he been in the playoffs before this year?
2 years, against Vegas and against the Blues. And he dominated the Blues last year. He carried us on his back, and we let him down. The rest of the team.
Can't say it about a single Twins player. Well, Carlos Correa, but hasn't done it for the Twins.
Maybe this year we'll see it.
Right. And then the Vikings, I don't know. I mean, Justin Jefferson hasn't done anything. One game.
No, we can't. We can't say it.
So I'd say Anthony Edwards is a surefire playoff player, which is cool. All right, let's move on. The Minnesota Twins just wrapped up their series against the New York Yankees. They're now 14-11. The AL Central is trash.
Hopefully 18-11 after this next series.
Yep, they play the Royals. Is that at home?
It is.
All right. And I think the one thing to come out of this series is, one, Byron Buxton is back on track after his terrible streak of strikeouts. And Kenta Maeda is done.
Yeah.
They're saying
Jose got a little hot today.
Yeah, that's good news too. Jose Miranda, first 2 home runs. And Joey Gallo is pretty good.
Yeah.
If he can be like, he doesn't have to be this. If he's this good all year, I mean, that's past the Kyle Anderson signing. That's even better than the Kyle Anderson signing. I mean, that would be unbelievable. But I can't expect that from him. But Kenta Maeda I can't imagine him being a starting pitcher on this team later this year.
No, I think Ober will completely take his spot.
You got some options. Bailey Ober, you got Louis Varland.
Those two, cut it off there.
I don't know what happened to Josh Winder. Like, he was good last year.
I think he's in the bullpen now. I could be wrong though.
Could be. Yeah, but you got options. Besides that, the starters,
you have Ober, and you have Varland, and I expect Ober to take his spot in due time.
Tyler Mahle, he's a solid pitcher. Nothing special. But when your top 3 so far this year have been really good, and Pablo, except for the last start, Sonny Gray has been Cy Young level,
He's been amazing.
and Joe Ryan.
He's been great.
I can't. I'm not letting myself get high on
Okay,
Joe Ryan.
he's been
again.
really good though.
Really good, but like even he's getting hit hard last night.
I don't know.
He gets hit hard every night, and
Yeah, but
somehow
he was
ends
just-
up with no
last
runs
night-
against him.
Last night he was just giving up singles though.
Yeah, I know.
He's
They're hard
5-0.
singles.
I think he's been pretty good this year.
Yeah, he'll let up an 8-run outing at some point. It's just gonna happen. He loves a good grand slam against. Right,
Hey.
I'm not expecting it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was thinking. Let's talk about this now. This isn't necessarily Twins related, but I told you, or I asked you the question earlier today. Which Minnesota sports team is closest to winning a championship? Did you think about it?
I have my list.
All right. Go with your fourth team first.
Okay. Should I go?
Yep.
Okay. It's the Timberwolves. It just is. As of the roster constructed right now, it is. If we trade Cat and we get some good pieces back and it's Ant's team and have some great pieces around him, maybe next year we make the second round. And then the next year, maybe we're not too far off. But as of now, with this roster, the horrible constructed roster that it is, the number 4 team, the farthest away, is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Unfortunately, I just got to be honest here. It is. But also, the best player out of these 4 teams with the greatest ceiling in Minnesota sports history of any one player is on that team.
My number 4 team. You might have this as 1, 2. I don't even know.
Yeah.
The Minnesota Vikings.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Kirk Cousins, you're not winning a championship with. I've seen enough. And the defense is garbage. Do you have Justin Jefferson? Yes. But like you said, the Bulls, they have Anthony Edwards. You can have a player like that, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
I love Kevin O'Connell.
It does in basketball. Like one
No, it
player can
matters.
will a team to.
It matters, but you need more than just that guy.
Yeah.
The offensive line is fine.
It's good. Come on.
But they're sort of entering a rebuild.
The offensive line is good. I think we have a good offensive line.
It's fine, yeah.
Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill,
good and Brian O'Neill's good.
Ezra Cleveland, and Garrett Bradbury. I don't know.
They're average.
I think Bradbury had a great year last year.
At right guard.
Bradbury had a great year last year.
Nonetheless, they just had to cut a bunch of old players. They're getting young again. I don't foresee them having a better record this year. They might draft a quarterback, which is the sure sign of we're taking a step back, which I'm fine with, to be honest. You're not going to win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. It's like I didn't even buy in last year when they were on a 7-game win streak. They were winning all those games very, very, very fluky. Kevin O'Connell's a perfect coach for this team. You have Justin Jefferson, and you have some Brian O'Neill, Darrisaw.
Hawkinson.
Defensively, who are your guys that are going to be on this team for 7 more years? I don't know if there's.
Well, I think we'll be drafting a couple.
Right, but that's why I'm saying they're far away.
Well, we have a great defensive coordinator who is going to have this defense in check, and the defense is going to be much better this year. Should I go to my 3?
Yes.
So you have the Vikings 4, and we'll get to that soon, but I disagree with you in short. Number 3, I have the Wild. The reason they're ahead of the Wolves is because the NHL playoffs. You probably hate hearing this talk, but in the NHL playoffs, anything can happen. It really can.
What's wrong with that? I don't mind that.
Well, just because whenever we talk about the NHL and the Wild, you always go like, no, that's like first round, like whatever. I have the Wild 3 ahead of the Wolves because they're a better team than the Wolves. They have a much better front office than the Wolves. And I guess they know what they're doing in the front office. And I guess I trust the front office more. They have a really good prospect pipeline. It's been ranked number 1 in the NHL. Good prospects coming up. We have Kirill, a top 10 player in the National Hockey League in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We have, like I said, just really good prospects, good young players, a really good goalie in Gus, but we also have the best goalie prospect in the world, who will be here in probably 2 years.
Sounds like they should be higher for you. What's wrong? Like, why are they number 3?
Because they're cash strapped, and the buyouts are really hindering them. They have to operate with $63 million payroll next year in a league that the cap is 81. It's at a huge disadvantage, and they're in an extremely hard division. And I don't think that Kirill, a left wing, can carry this team. He needs more pieces around him. He needs an elite center. We don't have one. And I'm disappointed by how this series has gone. I got to be honest with you. The coaching has been bad for the second year in a row. The penalty kill has been brutal. Special teams just terrible. And like I said, the division is really hard. So that's why they're 2 or 3, but they're higher than the Wolves.
My number 3 is the Timberwolves, but in apostrophe. I'm not going to show you what I actually wrote down here because then it would be giving away my top 2. I said in apostrophes, they're close. They're 1 move away. I tweeted it last night. If you trade Karl-Anthony Towns and get the right package back, and Jaden McDaniels improves, continues to improve, and Anthony Edwards gets even better. Well, I mean, he's already that good. I'm just saying, like, I'm assuming he gets better, but how much better, it all depends on
Well, I mean,
the
what do you
people
think?
around him.
21 years old.
He's going to get better, yes. I just think right now, if they didn't make a trade, they're not that close. But if they made a trade, they are closer.
Which I said as the roster is constructed right now.
Right. That's why I have them at number 3. Because right now they're not that close, but they could get close.
But they make this trade, which we hope they do. Good pieces around Edwards. He's 22 next year. He's even better with still 5 years away from his prime. Yeah, maybe a run could be had. And then the second round or get lucky, maybe squeak into the conference finals. But then when he's 23, then there's expectations. It's like, oh, you know what? We made it. We had a good run last year. Our goal is to, make the conference finals. Maybe do that year. Okay, then the next year, he's 24. Still only 24. By that point, we can all assume that he is one of the absolute best players in the league. Even more expectations. Yeah, by the time he's 24 and the right pieces are around him, yeah, maybe we do make the finals. And then that's how you get really close. So, I mean, I don't hate it, but the trade has to be made first. It has to be made.
What's your number 2?
My number 2 is the Vikings. I'll explain. I think Kevin O'Connell is a really good coach. And I think the front office is very, very good. There's not a front office I trust more in Minnesota and an ownership group I trust more in Minnesota than the Will family and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and the entire front office. There is no one I trust more. They know what they're doing. They want to win as bad as anybody. And I don't think they'll stop until they get there. JJ is the best receiver in football by a lot. Brian Flores is going to be great for this defense. It's going to be a young defense. It's going to be a hungry defense. They're going to be aggressive. And I think it's going to be actually like a pleasant surprise. I think the defense is going to be really fun to watch this year because it's going to be the start of like a younger, newer defense that, like I said, is aggressive. And they're kind of going to be underdogs a little bit because no one's going to give them a chance. And they're going to surprise us like where they're actually going to be a pretty good defense. Yeah, Kirk is very polarizing in the state. I've always been on the Kirk side because the last 3 years he has been an elite quarterback, and his defense has been ranked 30th in the NFL the last 3 years. He has been elite. He had 8 game-winning drives last year. JJ does not break all these records if, I don't know, like another quarterback is under center. He doesn't. Kirk has a hand in that. Like I said, I think KOC is a really good coach. Last year, I think we beat the Giants if we have a competent defense. We didn't. Our schedule this year is really hard. I'm not going to lie. But second year under KOC's offense and Kirk, he's never had a consistent play caller 2 years in a row with the Vikings. He was really good last year. JJ is going to get it even better. Hawkinson is back. Like I said, I'm high on our offensive line, and the defense will be better. So I have high hopes, and that doesn't mean I think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I think they're closer than the other two.
I don't disagree with much of that, and I still have them number 4 because they will not win a Super Bowl, which is what this question is asking with Kirk Cousins. He will come up short. I was always on the side of Kirk, and I don't hate Kirk. Like, he's a solid quarterback. He's really solid. But like, how do you throw it 4th and 8 and you don't even throw it to the chains? Like, that's I mean, I know it's a shrug your shoulders, but like in the biggest moment of the season, completely crumbles. You just can't do that.
He had 8 game-winning drives.
Patrick Mahomes is not doing that.
He had 8 game-winning drives, and he led the NFL.
100%. And then you get to the playoffs, and he pulled a cat.
Defense.
100%. But he had the ball.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But also, Kevin O'Connell will be a much better play caller this year than he was last year. He was already really good last year. But, we've talked about it. He had some weird short yardage situations last year. I think he'll be much better in that regard. And in that playoff game, there were like a few short yardage situations that we didn't get. Who knows? It might be a different game if we complete those.
Yeah. Listen, none of these teams, to be honest, are that far away from being really, really good.
Well, like I
think
said,
these are all really close. But
the Wolves have the greatest ceiling out of all of them just because of who their best player is. That's
right. And in basketball, you have less players. So if you have a good player, it matters more. But the reason you have the Vikings second, yeah, they have a lot of good things going for them. And like you said, the defense is young, and that is exciting. But they are young. So that means they are far away. No very young defense wins a Super Bowl, like, unless you have a unbelievable quarterback that just doesn't matter if your defense is that good or not, like Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
But usually you need a pretty solid defense, and I think they're like 2-3 years away from the possibility of having a really solid defense. And I don't think Kirk's your quarterback in 3 years. And so you'd have a very young quarterback. No. So I just think that's why. My number 2 is the Minnesota Wild. And I just feel like I don't know that much about. Like, I know what the Wild are doing, sort of. And it has been hard for me to understand what it makes Dean Evison a good or bad coach, because I don't pay attention enough. But I feel like in the NHL, if you have a good goaltender, which it sounds like they do with Frederick Gustafsson. Philip Gustafsson.
It's about the one coming up too. It's the prospect that we have. He's the best goalie prospect.
From people like you, it sounds like they have a good prospect line. That's why I don't think they're that far away with Kirill. It just sounds like they need a number 2. They don't have a number 2, and it doesn't sound like they're that. And Boldy's maybe a number 2 coming close.
Well, it's not really. I get what you're saying, and you're right, but it's not like necessarily about a 1 or 2. It's about positions. We need a center. We need a number 1 center. The number 1 center can be a number 2 scoring option, yes, but we need a center. We need somebody to play with Kirill that is not as elite as him, but is elite in his own right.
Like the Lightning. Let's get deep in hockey here. The Lightning have won a bunch of or a couple Stanley Cups, right? Or just one?
They've won a couple, and I will tell you why. They have the best goalie in the world, the best goalie of his generation.
That's
and
what I feel
Andre
like you need in the
Vasilevsky.
NHL. If you have an unbelievable goalie and then
Great defense.
for sure number one star like Kucherov, right?
Yep, Kucherov. He's the star, and then you have really good centers down the middle and Braden Point and Stamkos, and on the back end you have arguably the best defenseman in the world in Victor Hedman. You got Sergachev, you got Chernak. Like they're big, they're mean. That's how you win. And the Wild are on like the right path, sort of. Like they play a style of play that is mean, but like I said, the goalie thing is so big and down the middle, they're just not.
I feel like their defensemen are kind of old.
They are.
Spurgeon's old.
And small, but
Goligoski's old. Dumba's been around. Brodin's been around. They don't really have a young guy. Like Brock Faber's really good. I guess he's young.
Like I said, the prospect rankings come up, but
Klingberg's
that's why
old.
they're sort of far because it takes time. It takes time. And
so maybe the Wild and Vikings are sort of in a similar because they both have a star.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
But they both have parts of their team that are about to get really young.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I agree with you.
We both have the Twins number one.
Yes. Let me be on the record. I think that in the playoffs this year, I think the Twins are going to have a moment. I do. I'm not saying that they're going to make it to the World Series, but I really do think that this team will make the playoffs and will do some stuff when they get there.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I don't think they're that far away from a championship is your bullpen is really good.
Best closer.
And you have two stars in Buxton and Correa, along with three guys on your starting staff that have the potential to be an ace.
Yeah.
In Sonny Gray, Joe Ryan, Pablo Lopez.
Yeah.
And so, like, you can go into a 3-game series like they have against, or a 5-game series like you have against the Yankees.
The Blue Jays or something.
And yeah. And
Sonny Gray is a good game.
Instead of having to go throw out Barrios and Odorizzi and Randy Dobnak,
right,
you can actually throw out three guys that are all solid. And then if one of them maybe has a bad game, you don't have to freak out and put out Tyler Duffy to try and get the inning over with. You can have Jorge Lopez and like guys like Joe Duran. These guys are really good. Griffin Jacks is good, and I know he hasn't had that good of a start this season.
Thielbar's solid.
Thielbar's fine. The issue is you still have a few young guys that need, if you're going to be a legit team,
like Miranda,
need to prove themselves. Like Miranda needs to get more consistent.
Yeah.
Who's a couple other guys?
Larnach. Kirilloff.
Yep. Trevor Larnach. Kirilloff, like you said.
Royce Lewis.
Like there's just a bunch of those guys. I feel like they all came up around the same time. Larnach and Kirilloff and Royce Lewis and those guys.
All four of them have the potential to be absolute studs.
Yeah, and like just right now, I just feel like the lineup is a little dead because you guys got guys like, I don't know, Solano's being solid, but then at the bottom it's like Christian Vasquez and Max Kepler and Joey Gallo's gotten off to a good start, but is that sustainable? I don't know. Willie Castro, Michael A. Taylor, like a bunch of these guys. So Jackson Borse might have had a computer malfunction, and I don't know what's happening, but his computer might have shut off. And so we might be having to end this because we have been talking for 54 minutes. So there could be, we might need to end this, but we had a good conversation. And let's see here. It's been a long episode, and I don't know if anybody's listening at this point. All right. I guess we'll end this way. Tomorrow, Vikings draft. Oh, Jackson is back. He's back. You are back.
Yeah. You were talking about the depth.
Yes, I was just talking about the bottom of the lineup. Michael A. Taylor and Willie Castro and Christian Vasquez and Joey Gallo. Is he sustainable? Guys like that.
Well, I'm going to do an exercise right now. I'm writing down the perfect scenario lineup.
Okay. While you do that, the Vikings draft is tomorrow. And just a quick note, there is a chance that they draft a quarterback. And I do not want Will Levis. If that is a possibility, Will Levis, they probably means they trade up. I'm not a big Hendon Hooker fan either. I'm not a big fan of drafting a quarterback, to be honest, because I don't love any of them that much. All right, your lineup.
Batting leadoff is
Leading off for the Twins. The center fielder number 25.
Many people, but I have it as Polanco right now, second baseman. But this could be Royce Lewis. It could be Buxton. It could be whatever. So Polanco is first. 2 is Buxton, center field. 3 is Correa, shortstop.
Yep.
4, Miranda, DH. 5, Kirilloff, first base. 6, Larnick, left field. 7, Royce Lewis, third base. Number 8, Gallo, right field. And number 9, Vasquez, catcher.
Who is batting second?
Buxton, center field.
So you went Polanco, Buxton, Correa, Miranda, Larnick.
Kirilloff,
Larnick, Royce Lewis, Gallo, Vasquez.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good lineup. It's probably the best lineup if those guys can turn out to be solid. So you're leaving out Kepler. You're leaving out Michael A. Taylor, who's been playing. You're leaving out Nick Gordon, obviously. Kyle Farmer, obviously. Solano.
Yep, Gordon's the first one out.
Yeah, I think that's good.
That is a really good lineup.
That could be the lineup by the end of the season.
What?
That could be the lineup by the end of the season.
Well, yeah, hopefully that's the lineup for playoffs. But every single one of those guys is dangerous at the plate. Every single one. I mean, except for Vasquez, but like he's a good hitting catcher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the perfect lineup.
Which is why I think that they could catch lightning in a bottle, and they could make a run. They haven't lately, but with this pitching, with this group of players, I think they could do something special.
Yep.
I'm committed this year. And for the next few years, I think that they could really make some noise.
Just talk for a second. I gotta let this damn dog out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. This twin season. Much better. Much better.
All right, I'm back. All right. I think that was enough on the Twins, and I think that was enough on the Wolves. And I think I mentioned what I mentioned with the Vikings. I think we've hit on everything. Anything you would love the Vikings to do tomorrow?
I want defense. Just get a stud. Get a quarterback, get a linebacker, get an edge rusher. One of the three. Just get a stud. I want him to be a difference maker, come in and make an immediate impact. And I really want them to nail this one. And I think they will.
Yeah. I don't want them to trade back. I think they need a player.
Yeah.
And I'm not usually I'd be like, hell yeah, draft a quarterback. I don't really want one.
Yeah.
I don't love any of them. And so I wouldn't be opposed to drafting a wide receiver, but I just don't think that's our biggest need.
Defense.
So, defense is our biggest need. And I think it's linebacker and I think it's cornerback.
Yeah.
Those are the two.
Yep.
And I don't even know if Danielle Hunter's going to freaking be here. But you got Danielle Hunter maybe. Who's on the other side? Didn't they just sign a player? I forget.
Well, they re-signed a cornerback from the Patriots, so that's like a good depth add. Andrew Booth will be back. And I mean, if we draft one, hopefully he's Like I said,
Caleb
hopefully he's a
Evans
stud.
showed some stuff last year. They got rid of, obviously, Dantzler, Patrick Peterson, cornerback. Let's see. You have Byron Murphy. That was the good signing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dean Lowry, they signed him from the Packers. They still have Harrison Phillips and Danielle Hunter, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. I think D-line, D-end, or corner or linebacker. Those are the three. All right. Anything else?
Hit
an hour.
Not a fun Wolf season. Just to put a bow on it, not a fun Wolf season. The only good part was Anthony Edwards, and that's just the story of the Timberwolves franchise right now. Not a lot of good, except we have Ant.
That's true. All right. Well, we'll be back at some point. I don't know when. Sometimes it's 2 days later. Sometimes it's 2 months later, and we'll talk about whatever is happening in the world of Minnesota sports. But Boristy, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for
It has
having
been an hour and 1 minute. That is a long time to talk about these sports teams, because these sport teams, like we've talked about, are close to a championship, but at the same time,
Super
a
far
mile away from a championship. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we like talking about them, because at any point they could make a move and become close, and they could also make a move and get further away. It's troubling. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next time.